Welcome to Present Poetry. I'm your host, Erin Crittenden, and all poems within this podcast are either public domain or used with permission from the author or the author's estate. It's a fun time for poetry lovers of all ages, so sit back, relax, and get ready to hear some poems of the past and the present. This week's featured poet is G.E. Farrow. George Edward Farrow was born March 17, 1862, in Ipswich, England. There is very little known about his early life, only that he was educated in London for a time before moving to America to continue his studies. He then worked as a clerk for a while in 1891 before declaring himself an author in 1901. During his career, Farrow wrote over 30 books for children, some adventure, some poetry, and some nonsense, and is often compared to the likes of Lewis Carroll and L. Baum. His first book, The Wallypug of Y, was first printed in 1895 and remains a beloved classic for kids and adults alike. Farrow died somewhere around 1919 and has no descendants as far as we know. We are reading from Absurd Ditties, a children's poetry collection published in 1903. This poem is called That of Matilda. Yes, I love you, dear Matilda, but you may not be my bride, and the obstacles are many, which have caused me to decide. Firstly, what is most annoying, and I'm not above confessing, is that I think you're indolent and over fond of dressing. I've known you spend an hour or two in a sittin' on a chair, and a fussin' and attending to your toilet or your hair. There's another little matter. You may say a simple thing, yet, Matilda, I must own it. I object to hear you sing. For the sounds you make in singing are so very much like squalling, and the only term appropriate to them is caterwauling. Indeed, I've never heard such horrid noises in my life, and I'd certainly not tolerate such singing in a wife. And Matilda, dear, your language, it is really very bad. The expressions which you use at times, they make me feel quite sad. It is very, very shocking, but I do not mind declaring that I've heard some sounds proceeding from your lips so much like swearing, that I've had to raise a finger and to close at least one ear, for I couldn't feel quite certain what bad words I mightn't hear. But worse than this, Matilda, I hear with pious grief many rumors that Matilda is no better than a thief, and I am shocked to find my darling so entirely lost to feeling as to go and give her mind up into picking and a stealing. Oh, Matilda, pray take warning, for a prison cell doth yearn for a person that appropriates and takes what isn't hern. And the culminating blow is this: you stay out late at night. Now, Matilda, dear, you must confess, to do this is not right. Where you go to, dear, or what you do, there really is no telling, and with rage and indignation my fond foolish heart is swelling. Yet the faults which I've enumerated cannot be wondered at, when one realizes clearly that Matilda is a cat. This poem is called That of the Poet and the Buccaneers. It does not fall to every man to be a minor poet, but Inksby Slingham he was one, and wished the world to know it. In almost every magazine his dainty verses might be seen. He'd take a piece of paper, blank, with nothing writ upon it, and soon a triolet 'twould be, a ballad or a sonnet, pantoums, in fact, whatever you please. This poet wrote with greatest ease. By dozens he'd turn poems out, to editors he'd bring 'em, till quite a household word became the name of Inksby Slingham. A mild exterior had he, with dove-like personality. His hair was dark and lank and long, his necktie large and floppy, vied his portrait in the sketch, a smellin' of a poppy. And unto this young man befell the strangest adventure I'll now tell. He took a summer holiday aboard the good ship Goshen, which foundered, causing all but he to perish in the ocean, and many days within a boat did Inksby Slingham sadly float. Yet many days, until with joy he saw a ship appearing. A skull and crossbones flag it bore, and towards him it was steering. This rakish-looking craft, thought he, I fear a pirate ship must be. It was, manned by a buccaneer, and from the very first he could see the crew were wicked men, all scowling and bloodthirsty. Indeed, he trembled for his neck when hoisted to their upper deck. Indelicate the way, at least, that he was treated, very. They turned his pockets inside out, they stole his waterberry, his scarf pin and his golden rings, his coat and, his other things. Then they ransacked his carpet bag, to add to his distresses, and tumbled all his papers out, his poems and MS's. He threw himself upon his knees, and cried, I pray you, spare me these. These? What are these? The pirate cried. I've not the slightest notion. He read a verse or two, and then seemed filled with strange emotion. He read some more, he heaved a sigh, a briny tear fell from his eye. Dear, dear, he sniffed, how touching is this poem to a brother. It makes me think of childhood days, my old home and my mother. He read another poem through, and passed it to his wondering crew. They read it, and all but two, their eyes were soon a-piping. It was a most affecting sight, to see those pirates wiping their eyes and noses in their griefs on many-colored handkerchiefs. To make a lengthy story short, the gentle poet's verses quite won these men from wicked ways, from piratings and curses, and all of them, so I've heard tell, became quite respectable. All but two, and one of them, than e'er before much worse is, for he is now a publisher, and pirates Slingham's verses. The other drives a pirate bus, continuing, alas, to cuss. This poem is called That of the Astute Novelist. Quite an ordinary person wrote an ordinary book. 'Twas the first he'd ever written, so a lot of pains he took. From a 2-a-penny paper, he some little factlets culled, with some stories of celebrities, by which the public's gulled. Then of course he had a hero, and likewise a heroine, and a villain and a villainess, whose nefarious design was most properly defeated in the chapter last but one, which described the happy ending. There you were, the thing was done. But somehow it didn't answer. Nothing strange, you'll say, in that. And indeed, perhaps there wasn't very much to wonder at, for the book was really never calculated fame to win, and the author's coat grew shabby, and his body very thin. And he pondered o'er his misery and ills, till one day he met a party who was posting up some bills. What's the matter? Asked this person. You are looking mighty glum. Books not selling? Advertise 'em. That's the dodge to make things hum. Look at What's It soap, and so on. Look at Thingumbobby's pills. It's the advertising does it, and the owner's pocket fills. Puff 'em up, the public likes it, and, this from behind his hand, it doesn't matter if it's not quite true, you understand. So the author wrote another book, and brought in czars and kings, and popes and noble ladies, queens and duchesses and things, and the problem of the moment, and some politics and cram, with tidbits of foreign language mixed with literary jam. And in type he had it stated that the world was all agog for this epoch-making novel and their memory to jog. The public had it daily, in all kinds of sorts of ways, thrust upon them till it set their curiosity ablaze. And from Brixton unto Ponder's End, 'twas daily talked about, this wonderful new novel, long before 'twas out. I forgot how many 100,000 copies have been sold, but it's brought the lucky author notoriety and gold. This judicious advertising has indeed brought him success. He is the lion of the moment in society, big S. It is even said that royalty, but there I mustn't say, for he'll tell you all about it in another book someday. This poem is called That of the Articulating Skeleton. There was a worthy doctor once, who, unlike Mother Hubbard, had many bones, a skeleton, shut up within a cupboard. One night the worthy doctor dreamt he'd been up rather late. His articulated skeleton did thus articulate. Come, doctor, come, confess that you're a fraud, a very specious humbug and a sham. Though meek as any lamb, don't glare at me, I'll tell it not abroad, but merely in your ears alone applaud the wily artifice of pill and dram. You know as well as I do, you don't mean one half the things you tell our patient. No, why I can clearly show that Mrs. Gobble's ailments are but spleen. 'Tis quite the simplest cause that ever was seen. And yet what crackjaw names you now bestow! Because, forsooth, the longer you can prey upon her pocket, that doth please you best. So, doctor, you protest, this case is serious, from day to day, and it must run its course, you gravely say, with wisest head shake and a look distressed. And then those pills, absurd, you know, to try, to gammon me with boluses of bread, while aqua pee, I've said, often is good, if nothing else be nigh, to drink when thirsty and our throats are dry, but not for medicine, though colored red. So, doctor, when we're by ourselves alone, don't try to put on side with me, good lack, for I can surely track full many a fatal case you'd fain disown, and I can tell all right why you should groan, when harmless ducks in passing cry, quack, quack. The doctor woke. Dear me, said he, the skeleton's too wise for me. He therefore packed it up and sent it off to Guy's. This poem is called That of Dr. Farley, M.D., Specialist in Little Toes. Ever heard of Dr. Farley? Dr. Farley, Sir, M.D., living in the Street of Harley, number 3? Years ago, the simple fact is, don't you know, he had but a tiny practice down at Bow. Consultations for a shilling, sir, with pills. For this sum he'd even was willing, sir, to cure all ills. Pains in tum-tums he would cure a man of in a night, with ipecac and aqua pura his delight. He was, too, a skilful surgeon, yet his fee seldom was it known to verge on, even 2 and 3. Work at this rate wasn't paying, what surprise? So he sold his practice, saying I must specialize. That's the way to pick up money, so I'm told. So he did it, now it's funny, but he rolls in gold. His success himself surprises, much surprises, for he knows that he only specializes little toes. When swells in their little tootsies suffer pain, unto him they bring their footsies to be put right again. For they say, sir, none but he, sir, understands the toe. Earls and dukes wait every day, sir, in a row. This the history of Farley, Dr. Farley, Sir, M.D. Others, in the street of Harley, others like him there may be. There is a moral to the story, if you're wise. If you'd win both wealth and glory, specialize. Thank you for listening to this episode of Present Poetry. If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review, share us on social media, or subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you would like to learn more about the featured poet, or you would like your work featured on the podcast, please check out the links in the show notes. Thank you again for listening, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.